I call to order the City of Gladstone Budget Committee meeting for Monday, March 25th, 2019 at 6 p.m. City Hall Council Chambers. If everyone could go around the table and introduce themselves.
Christy Haller-Schaefer.
Mindy Garlington.
My name is Steve Bergeron.
John Wolvend.
Linda Neese. Brenda Schellenberg.
Johnny Akers.
Colette Umbris.
Pastor Tom Mercer.
Randy Ripley.
Tracy Todd.
Matt Tracy.
Intern Fire Chief Jeff Smith.
Jackie Betts.
Kathy Brucker.
Jim Wynot.
Colin Black.
Interim Police Chief Kim Yamashita.
Mayor Tammy Stemple, and we've got
Tammy Bannock.
and then in out there sitting we have Captain Richard Newton, Captain Kirk Stemple, and Captain Pat Brost. All right, so the first item is appointment of Budget Committee Chair and Vice Chair. Do we have any nominations?
I nominate Mindy Garlington as chair. I'll second that.
Do we? Any other nominations?
Oh wait, do I still get a ride home if I do that?
Any other nominations? All right, so we'll vote on that one first. All in favor of Mindy Garlington as the chair, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Awesome. All right, so let's do the vice chair real quick. Any nominations for vice chair?
Colette.
I'm back at you.
Any other for vice chair? All right, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of Colette Umbris as the vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, take it away, Mindy.
Oh.
Yes,
So
that's what
see,
happened.
Mayor Stemple did the call to order. We did our self-introductions. We did that. Everybody has the book, and we are looking for public comments. You are limited to 3 minutes, and you had to have turned in a card. Do we have any cards?
We have no cards.
We have no cards. Moving on. We'd like to discuss the proposed 2019 to 2021 budget, including budget message, city budget message, financial analysis, and department presentations. Take it away, staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If all of you could turn to page 1. To the Honorable Mayor, members of the Gladstone City Council, citizen members of the Budget Committee, citizens of the City of Gladstone, it is my pleasure to present for your consideration a balanced budget of $53,495,386 for the fiscal year's 2019-2021 biennial budget, which is a decrease of 17.23% from the previous biennial budget. The decrease is due to the completion of financings and a correction of a budgetary overstatement in the beginning fund balance. The purpose of the budget message is to introduce the proposed budget, supply a brief overview of the document, and how it will address the Council's goals with the City's resources over the coming biennium. The 2019-21 proposed budget for the City of Gladstone is, as required by Oregon law, the most important document of the city. It sets standards and establishes an action, operational, and financial plan for the delivery of city services. The budget document was organized into 11 funds and accounts for 18 programs, in addition to the Urban Renewal Agency that publishes a separate budget. It is important for citizens to understand that revenue sources are tied to specific expenditures and can only be used for their prescribed purpose. Each fund is designed to separate transactions in compliance with a specific program and to assist in the management of public dollars. Dollars cannot be moved between funds without the proper budgetary appropriations. The city's finance consultant prepared the document under the guidance of the city administrator with the collaboration of the supervisory staff that includes the Public Works Director, interim fire chief, interim police chief, senior center manager, and city recorder. We have spent considerable time preparing the budget utilizing the most accurate information available to predict revenues and expenditures for the next 2 years. The City Council held a strategic planning session in January, and goals were incorporated into our work plan for the next 2 years. They build off a successful past couple years, and the momentum will carry us into the next biennium. These goals are identified in the budget document. The city's permanent tax rate continues to be $4.8174 per thousand. The city is collecting the full permanent levy amount, and revenues will remain steady. In general, this is a relatively static budget operationally. A proposed general fund options list will also be submitted for Budget Committee consideration. Changes in personnel that have been incorporated are discussed below. The budget highlights include transient lodging tax revenues are higher than anticipated since an ordinance implementing a 6% transient lodging tax in the city limits of Gladstone became effective. In the next biennium, the city will initiate a tourism plan that capitalizes on Gladstone's exceptional assets and is spent in accordance with ORS 3203007. The police services and fire services operating levies were renewed at the November 2018 election for 5 years, beginning July 2019 through 2024. The police levy will continue at the current rate of 68 cents per thousand of assessed value, generating $1,311,323. This will allow the city to continue to provide funding to maintain police services at the existing level of service and the current staffing level to serve the Gladstone community. The fire levy will continue at the current rate of 31 cents per thousand of assessed value, generating $597,722. This will allow the city to continue with the current staffing level and the existing level of fire and medical services for the Gladstone community. The city entered into an intergovernmental agreement for Milwaukee to provide right-of-way management services in accordance with Gladstone Ordinance 1465. An established and active road program will increase the revenue to the city, which will assist in the much-needed maintenance and repair to our city infrastructure. The proposed budget includes phased-in updates to the utility rates, which will put the city in a position to continue to operate and maintain its infrastructure, address the requirements listed in the mutual agreement and order with Department of Environmental Quality, which is to settle DEQ violations pertaining to raw sewage overflowing into the Clackamas River, and in 5 years be able to replace its infrastructure on a 100-year cycle. Gladstone's elected officials are committed to catching up on infrastructure needs. Water, sewer, and stormwater systems are in very poor condition due to long deferred maintenance and lack of timely replacement of failing infrastructure. A high priority is updating water and sewer rates to pay for fixing failing pipelines, pump stations, and storage tanks. These investments are needed to maintain reliable water and sewer service to city residents. The proposed budget includes 57.72 full-time employees. The FTE counts are based on the first year of the biennial budget, and individual budget detail has the breakdown. The counts are also based upon the departmental allocation of each employee, which accounts for slight differences between fiscal years. The municipal court has increased to a full-time court administrator, and the fire department increased by 1 full-time captain during the current biennium. Within the Public Works Department, new positions have been incorporated that will be split amongst parks, roads, and streets, sewer, water, and stormwater. These positions amount to 2.5 FTEs and will be added incrementally between the 2 years of the biennium. The city completed and is in the process of implementing a strategic assessment of our classification and compensation plan for all city employees. The new compensation plan brings salaries in line with public agency market comparables, improves morale, and boosts job appeal retention. Funding for the implementation of the compensation portion of the plan update was addressed with each affected fund. Labor expenses driven by increasing costs associated with retirement benefits, specifically the Public Employees Retirement System, known as PERS, paint a grim picture for the next several years. For Gladstone, the actuary increase is an average of 5.96 percentage points to the previous rate, or a 43% average overall increase, and continues to rise at a faster rate than our primary revenue sources. Fortunately, other payroll-related benefits have remained relatively stable. The proposed, and please insert the word option, I meant to put the proposed option budget, reflects a recommendation to separate the information technology department from the administration budget. Information technology is an integral part of a city's infrastructure, and for the past 3 years, Gladstone invested over $350,000 to upgrade its technology to support best business practices in communication, transparency, data, and facility security. The result is that all the city's locations are connected to one central location for more efficient communications. Data is secure from catastrophic and malicious events, and the city's financial systems are upgraded, dependable, and transparent. The City of Gladstone and Clackamas County entered into an agreement which contemplates the county constructing and managing a new library in the City of Gladstone on the current City Hall site. The agreement also specifies that the city will contribute approximately $200,000 per fiscal year of general fund revenue, with increases indexed to the annual rate of increase of the city's property tax revenue to fund operating costs. This proposed budget assumes the financial commitment in year 2020 to 21. An additional agreement to transfer library employees and the facility to the county is forthcoming, and the financial payment correlates with a reduction in employees once the agreement is in place. The city entered into a guaranteed maximum price contract to build the voter-approved Gladstone Police Station and City Hall, known as the Civic Center, to be located at 18505 Portland Avenue. Besides the current police station not meeting the 2022 building code for essential buildings, the voters agreed that the police station and City Hall current space is unable to be upgraded without a complete demolition and rebuild. It is more cost efficient to construct new facilities. Construction will be substantially completed by May 2020. The voters also authorized the city to incur debt to finance the Civic Center. The total project cost is $13.8 million. Financing was issued by the Gladstone Urban Renewal Agency for $3.8 million, and the City of Gladstone with a full faith and credit note for $3 million, as authorized by resolutions number UR66 and number 1137. The remainder of the total cost of the project is available in agency cash funds. This year's general fund unappropriated ending fund balance before reserves is $812,841, and including reserves of $400,000, the final ending fund balance is $1,212,841. The city strives to maintain a healthy general fund ending fund balance of 10% of general fund unreserved revenues, at a minimum $1,109,478, as determined by the city's financial policy, in order to be financially stable through December for the following fiscal year before property taxes are received. We recommend the city prepare a 5-year long-range financial plan and a cost allocation plan in the next biennium to monitor the fiscal health of the city, in addition to the progress we make each year in attaining and maintaining the fund balance targets. And finally, our employees are a valued asset, and we commend the hard work they put forth in partnership with the community volunteers. It is because of all of them the city is able to provide excellent results with programs and projects in Gladstone. We also want to thank the elected officials and Budget Committee for your guidance and input as we work on this document together, keeping Gladstone's vision and core values at the forefront. Our city will be safe, healthy, engaged, livable, vibrant, thriving, highly qualified, accountable, financially stable, and continually improving. Sincerely, Jackie Betts.
Now we'd like to just give you a quick review of the budget document as it is set up now. I'll touch on a couple of the things that Jackie had mentioned in her letter, but we'll go through this rather quickly so we can get to the department presentations then. So starting right away, and your budget calendar is on page 5, followed by the organizational chart, your strategic plan, as Jackie mentioned, that the council has put together and voted on. Page 11 starts into the budget user guide. This is basically much of the information we covered the other night, last week at the orientation meeting, but does give you some specifics if you have any questions about the whole budget process and what we have to go through here. Moving on to page 16, this is the fund structure and descriptions. Over the past year, we've had several discussions regarding how the budget is set up and how the appropriations are actually adopted, and that provides some answers for you on that. Page 18 shows the actual breakdown of how the budget will be adopted. Getting into the budget summary, on page 19, there is a revenue summary by source, shows you the total for all funds as far as the types of revenues that we have, the percentage it makes up within the budget. Getting into the budget summary detail, that will take you a little bit deeper into the major revenues, etc. As Jackie had mentioned, we did have an issue coming from the 17-19 budget regarding the beginning fund balance, how it worked through to the end. There was actually an overstatement in the last biennium budget of about $6.5 million. So those were just numbers on a page. It was not backed up by actual cash. So there was no money missing or anything like that. But that did affect the construction of this budget, there's no doubt. So you'll see some differences resulting from that, and that is why they did appear. One thing you want to always remember with a biennium budget is basically it is one full biennium budget. It is not just 2 years added together, and that's what had created that previous
How
error.
much was the overstatement again?
In total, it was about 7.3, but 6.5 was really 6.5 million was what really affected
It's on page 20.
some of the funds.
20.
Yes.
Halfway down, where it says there was a
The
computation error.
Yeah.
And that was what we brought back to council
Yes.
to
All right.
fix.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There were also some questions regarding property taxes this year. Property taxes are doing well. We have estimated them at about a 3.25% increase, but I do anticipate they will come in better than that. The certified levy for the 2019 property taxes came in quite a bit higher than what had been estimated. So, of course, we're building and adjusting on that as soon as we get a hard number to be able to work with. There was also, too, a question regarding compression. And with reviewing this with Clackamas County information on the city of Gladstone, the compression loss within Gladstone for the general fund taxes was all of $2.22, and for the local option levy for police and fire amounted to $30.87. So as you can see, with the increasing property values, the economy getting better, etc., the whole compression situation is not an issue for Gladstone to worry about. If anybody has any more questions on that, please let me know. Going into continuing along then, As Jackie was saying, the transient lodging tax has come in far higher than anticipated. This was the first fiscal year that we've received funds on it, so you'll see that budget estimate has jumped up quite a bit.
Page 22.
Page 22, yes, there. And then going on to, as I say, it's just basically descriptions then of some of the other revenues. On page 24 is the expenditure summary by category for all funds. You can see there that capital outlay, of course, is always, usually quite large. Personnel services is the largest of the operating types of expenditures, followed by materials and services. The on personnel services, as we were mentioning, PERS has definitely hit all cities within Oregon for significant increases. Personnel services in total, though, only increased by 8.72% over the previous biennium, which is really quite low when you consider the PERS increases that averaged almost 6%. A 3% COLA is in there each year, and then the implementation of the class and comp study. So it's really stayed quite well maintained overall. Materials and services only increased by 3.6%, so that was right in line with basically the cost of living updates. Capital is reduced due to pulling the library capital project fund that was in the last biennium. Of course, that project didn't go through, so that money was pulled, or the budget was. And then debt service increased from the payment of the general fund new full face and credit issue that was taken for the new civic center buildings. Transfers out reflect the right-of-way transfers from utilities to roads, and the transfers in and out balance. If you looked at this document all by itself, you would see that it's out of balance, but it's because of the transfer out coming from urban revenue over to the civic center building. Between the two documents, they balance. And that about takes through all of that. Then going on to, we'll be doing the departmental demonstrations, or the departmental pages next, and then I'll come back and tell you about debt service.
So I'll start on page 30, administration. And we hope you like the layout of this. What we tried to do this year is to just put some noteworthy items and highlights and a brief overview of what the department encompasses. It's not our intent to read through these line by line, but administration really handles a lot of the internal core of the department, and it also encompasses city council. The 5.8 full-time employee, FTE that we have is a city administrator, a city recorder, office assistant, 1.5 accounting clerk position, human resources is at a part-time position, and then we budgeted in for a finance manager at a 0.8 position for there. And as you scroll through our materials and services, our contractual and professional services currently consists of an IT contract that is part-time, which I'm going to talk to you about on the options list. And then again, the IGA I mentioned with Milwaukee that we have for road services. We also pay her out of that line item, and then we have transcription services. Our line items are pretty self-explanatory. If you follow through, we carry the legal expenses. We also have the community promotions business development line item, and as you can see, it looks pretty hefty, and that's because for the last almost 3 years, the city has not spent any of that money. It is designated to only be spent on community promotions business development. I can tell you some of the big ticket items that we'll be using that for in the next couple of years is, one, to hire economic development staff to help us do some of the short-term strategies that are in the downtown revitalization plan. We ordered new Christmas lights to hang on Portland Avenue, and they just came in today, I believe. We also have an IGA with the school district for the community schools program, so each year we pull about $24,000 out of that line item. And then we have various other types of projects, whether it's related to housing code amendments. We're also working on trying to do a Main Street program and various items in that line item, or community promotion, business development. I will tell you that in my experience, most cities, when they get revenue from business license funds, they go into the general fund and it helps offset costs related to administration. But Gladstone has determined that they want that to be separate, and so that's where that money's allocated. Dues and memberships, travel and training, we listed those out because it encompasses city council, which is 7 members, and then also the 5.8 employees in the administration. Any questions for administration?
Could you run through what the community promotions business development is being used for, what you think it's going to be used for?
Those were those items that I called on economic development
staff,
consulting.
Christmas decorations, I was writing as fast as I could.
Community school IGA is $24,000.
Okay, that's the one that I missed. Okay.
And then when we did our goal setting, the council gave me about $50,000 because Gladstone does not have a community development program, and we have to hire out to have specific economic development projects done, that I could use some money out of there to hire for specific projects to have done there.
Thank you.
Okay, Jim.
Facilities. So as many of you may remember, facilities was a brand new fund in this last biennium budget. And it was put together based on our best educated guess on what it would be. And we didn't do too bad, actually. We budgeted 0.6 FTE, and we've actually are using 0.86, so we are a little under budgeted on staff time. So we did not include additional staff in the proposed budget, but again, we will talk about that in the options list if we want to, if we're going to up that, that's in the options list. But in this budget is just status quo there for FTE. You'll notice that in the contractual and professional services went up a little bit, and same with operation and maintenance, and that's based on the trending that we have for the last year and a half. So if you've seen what we've done with our spending to maintain all the city's facilities, which those are City Hall, police, fire, library, which the library will be going away. So about halfway through this budget cycle, or whenever they start getting the new library up and running, which will probably actually be after this biennium, that need will go away. So maybe it'll work out. Senior center and also public works. So that's what the facilities is taking care of. The other one that's made a big change line item is utilities. It's the bottom of the materials and services. And that, again, that's based on actuals and trending that we have over the last year and a half, so that's why that has increased. Down in the capital outlay, we have some building repairs anticipated, some work at the senior center, at fire, and some other places. The facilities improvement, that's specifically for public works, and that revenue there is actually coming out of the enterprise funds in public works. So that's actually being transferred in, and it's a start doing facility improvements there. Back when the City Hall and police station did a feasibility study, they also did one for public works, so we know what that need is. So now this is a way to start phasing in pay as you go. It'll probably take 10 or 15 years to do, but it's to start making those improvements. Yes?
So is that what you referenced above, establish a building reserve
No.
amount to begin remodeling a public works facility?
Oh.
There's a... right
Oh,
above
up there
it.
on the line, yes.
That's what I
That's what that
assumed
line
that was
is.
that is.
Yes.
And is that going to be a dedicated account?
Yes. That's why it has its own line item there.
Okay. But
Yeah.
it's not a separate fund that's untouched?
No, it's in the facilities fund, but it's a separate line item so we can track it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it can't be rated for other things?
I hope not. No, no.
Okay.
So, and some of the things that we have on our radar that need to be done right away, the back part of Public Works is built in the right-of-way there, and that's going to be going away as part of the new Civic Center project. Well, that's where our decant facility is, and it's really not an official decant facility, so we have to relocate that somewhere on site, and that's going to cost some funds.
What
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm
No.
using Public Works lingo here. So a decant facility is where we bring back muddy, a big sloppy load of mud, or that big Vector truck we have now, we clean out the pipes and we pull all the debris out of our storm and sewer and stuff. We have to come back and deal with this big bowl of soup in a sense. So we put it in this decant facility and it slowly drains the water out. It filters it and it filters it again before it's released into either the sewer or the storm system. So it's a quite involved underground system, and it needs to be sloped so it drains slowly, and basically all the sediment settles, and then you move it and dry it out more, and then you can get rid of it when it gets down to a certain consistency.
So you're going to need to create a new...
That whole facility, yeah. The one we have now is not, let's say, legit, so we're going to have to...
It's working as well as you'd like it.
Yes, and that's another way to put it. But we're going to be rebuilding it and doing it right, and that's what part of this is going to start. And also our facility, we've got 13, 14 guys down there, and during the summer we're over 20, and we got one bathroom, and we got one in the office trailer, and we have to bring in a porta potty and stuff. So we need to really start dealing with our facility down there for staff. We don't have the appropriate showers. We don't have... The lunchroom is used for everything, so people don't have the opportunity to get a lunch and, stuff like that. So it's just... We did a big needs assessment. We know what we need. We just need to start moving forward on it. And this is a way to do it.
Okay.
Pay as you go, and just, it might take a while, but we'll start somewhere.
Are we talking a remodel situation then?
It's very possible to remodel. That's going to be the most, right.
Okay.
That's probably going to be the most cost effective, but over this next 2 years, what we really want to do is put together a plan.
Okay.
So we know what we need for square footage. Now we just got to see how we can put all that stuff on that site. And if we can remodel, absolutely. Yeah.
I have a question. Your building repair only has money for the next year, but you're anticipating no building repair needed for 2021, or?
Well, we're assuming we're going to do most of it there, but if it doesn't, it'll carry over to that next year. So if we don't get...
You don't have an actual plan for $47,000. You're just hoping it doesn't go over that and you'll have leftover.
We have a list of things that we're going to do, and we're guesstimating on what those are going to cost.
Okay.
And so when we go out to bid, which we have to go out to bid for a lot of stuff, it may come in less or more, but our plan is to do that in the next 2 years.
So I guess my question is that enough?
I think so.
It seems like
For-
a small amount to me.
Well, some of the repairs are like painting of the senior center. We already have an estimate of that, so that's part of that. And there's some other things in there.
So this isn't emergency repairs?
No, these are known repairs that need to be
Okay.
done for maintenance. We know that needs to be done.
Okay.
So this is part of like a 2-year plan with what the work's already been going there. Now this year we'll do the painting, and then there's some other stuff
So
too.
this isn't necessarily talking about the new remodel that you're talking about for the public works?
No,
facility itself.
right. This is repair of
Okay.
existing facilities.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So we're not budgeting anything at this point then for your remodeling?
That's on facilities improvements.
Oh,
That's what that is
facilities. Okay.
specifically for. Yes.
250?
Yeah, and the
Okay.
funds are coming transferred out, and you'll see those in the documents where they're
Okay.
transferred out of the enterprise funds out of Public Works to support that. So
Okay, I am clear now.
the police and fire and the general fund's not really paying into that piece, except for 1/5 out of the parks, because parks is part of Public Works.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Oh, I get it now.
All right. I know it'd be nice to be easier, but it's not. So are there any other questions on facilities?
One more question.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Going back to this building repair, I just think that this is a really small amount, and I'm curious to know what buildings all you're taking care of in that repair. I mean, it costs $50,000 to put a new kitchen in a house, so
Right. Right.
how far is that really going to go?
Well, I think once you let us go through the budget in its entirety and we start talking about the ads later
Okay.
on, and you see what we have left in the city,
Got it.
you'll think we're doing pretty good here. We're trying to balance these numbers. This is just, we're literally like a third of the way, or a quarter of the way through the budget, and there's a whole lot more to go that'll
Okay.
kind of paint the whole picture.
Yeah, and I guess that's a good point, because with what we've proposed, we are right at our 10% per our fiscal policies of what we should have saved in contingency and reserves. we have about a pot of $100,000, and that's what we're going to talk about at the end for options. So we appreciate that you think we need more money, but you need to see the list of things where we think we need more money,
Okay.
and then we'll decide about that.
Got it.
Okay, so municipal court is actually, this city has municipal court, and we have a judge, we have a prosecutor, and we have defendant indigent clients. The city administrator oversees the municipal court, and a couple years ago when we eliminated the assistant city administrator position, that position had oversight of the court. Now that I oversee that position, we increased the court clerk to a court administrator. So we have one court administrator and we have one court clerk, and in this budget the court administrator is full-time. So you see a very, very frugal budget in our municipal court, and they do a very good job of being prudent with how those dollars are spent. And that's really what you see in those line items there. That is one of each that we have. Chief.
I'm up. Okay. I don't have anything as sexy as a decampment, but we'll try to make it interesting.
Maybe an encampment? No, I'm just
That's
Oh, no, we don't want that either.
So, we've pretty much done a very status quo budget. I worked with Kathy and we did some housekeeping and rearranged a few things. And you'll see in this budget, also in the levy budget, we've broken out a couple of programs a little bit just so that we can track expenditures, basically the return on investment in those a little bit more. And we combined a few line items. You'll notice like the radio maintenance and replacement and radar maintenance and replacement, we didn't budget anything for those, and moved everything over to the office supplies and equipment, I believe is where we put it.
That was a huge number.
Yeah.
Oh my
so,
goodness.
Yeah. So we just kind of put everything together. It was kind of getting spent that way anyhow. So, and then a lot of our contractual services are a lot of our software and maintenance needs for those kinds of things. And then in one of the equipment line items, or one of the equipment pieces that I want to talk about that we are adding that's fairly expensive, it's about $25,000. It's called TrueNarc. And with the change in our world out there where fentanyl is out and about, we've had a lot of officers around the United States exposed accidentally, and some firefighters too, exposed accidentally to fentanyl. And a grain of sand-sized fentanyl can be a lethal dose, and it's very hard to know when you're dealing with it. It's just a powdery substance like many other drugs. So the TrueNarc machine that we'll be ordering will replace the little shake tests that we have to do, which requires us opening up the bags of drugs, taking a drug sample out, putting it in that little thing, breaking capsules, shaking that around, and really exposing the staff to things that are very hazardous like fentanyl. That machine, basically, you just leave everything in the container, and it clamps onto the container and can analyze it through the plastic bag. Super cool. No chemicals to add, nothing else to do, and no need to extract a sample out. So it's really important that we have this machinery. We can't charge somebody with a drug crime unless we do this preemptive test prior to charging. Then the conviction will come after the lab actually confirms our testing, but we have to have that initial test in the field, basically, before we can book them into jail. That's an immediate result?
It's an immediate result, yep.
So $25,000 gets you one for each car?
No, it's one machine at the police department.
Oh, okay.
And it's got a vented hood and other safety precautions like that.
Okay.
So they'll bring in the suspect, they'll bring in the suspect item, they'll test it, and if it tests for what they think it will, then they can go and book them.
All right.
So
Which line item was that again?
Kathy, help me, where did we put that? Do you recall?
I'm sorry, I don't.
Okay. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be under the, supplies
Okay.
and forms under that 186.
Okay.
We are currently working on some of these emergency management things you'll notice in the budget highlights. The emergency management page is complete and published. I just need our IT professional to link it to the right section in our website for me. And then when you bring up the police department page, you'll be able to see that. And we've been spending time working on emergency management, resilience, getting citizens prepared for 2 weeks at minimum of self-reliance, which is a little bit different than what has been done in the past, where it's been 72 hours. But we've learned through different catastrophes like Katrina and everything in between that 3 days isn't enough of supply, so we really need 2 weeks. So we've been doing outreach, and then we're going to really hit the emergency management piece in this next biennium to get that done. And we're working on public service announcements as well. I think that will be really helpful. And it's going to be everything from emergency management, but it'll include things what to do in a traffic stop, how to report things, just quick little PSAs like you see the actors do. We'll have different officers do PSAs. What is a school resource officer? Things like that. Everything else is pretty much status quo. Like I said, we just rearranged a few things just to get a better idea of our return on investment in some of these programs. See, True Narc was almost as sexy as the camp.
I was just gonna say
Yeah.
that. You sold yourself short there.
Is there a section for continued training?
Yeah, so our training is under, let me find it.
Travel and
Travel,
conferences.
conferences and training.
Towards the bottom.
Yep.
Just the bottom.
So surprisingly, I mean, we have a new software that is combined. It works with our with our policy manual through the software called Lexipol. And what we can do with that is send out a daily training bulletin. So every day of every month, the officers are exposed to a training bulletin, and you have to read through it, you look at what the policy is that applies, and then answer a scenario-based question. And at the end of the year, we have basically a breakdown of all the officers' training by category. For example, use of force, ethics, liability, different operational things. So it's very cost-effective way to do it, and it reorients them to what's in the budget or what's in the policy manual. And so we train basically every day with that, and then we do all the hands-on stuff as well. Okay. You're welcome. Thank you.
Fire department. Well, biennial budgets, our second year of being able to, work through a biennial budget. We learned a lot the first year. The Gladstone Fire Department, we're actually a status quo budget again, as well as the police department. We have 6 full-time FTE, one of which is on the levy, and 24 part-time personnel. As we go through up here, as you can see, the largest amount of the, of course, associated cost for payroll, but the on-call firefighters is our 24 personnel. We've got another 5 to 6 that will be going through academy here soon in this coming year, so we'll be increasing our numbers.
As long as you're talking about staffing, right now there seems to be a pretty good-sized jump from the last biennial budgeted salaries of $698,000.
That's correct, because we did the salary survey for all positions, from the fire chief to the fire marshal to the captains. we did a salary survey to be all the comps in our area,
Mhm.
and that increased about 300 and some odd $1,000 just to those positions.
Just the budgeted positions, not the on-calls?
Oh, even you're
Even the
correct.
on-calls?
Not the on-calls,
Not the on-calls?
on-calls. Mhm.
Just the 4
There's,
positions?
there's 5 FTEs in the general fund and 1 FTE in the
Well,
levy.
This isn't reflected in the levy stuff, so
Correct.
it's the 4.
That's,
5?
there's 5 FTEs. We
I'm
have
sorry,
a
5.
fire chief,
Yeah, 5.
fire marshal, and 3 captains
And 3
within
captains.
the general fund the general
Okay,
fund.
so that's 5 positions.
So it's a status quo budget,
Okay.
so we can continue our standard of cover and provide the services that we had showed in the levy and that document there. Like, our first biennial budget went well, but this next one, when we went through it and looked at the expenditures, we were able to save some monies and also move some money around like the police department did, and move some money towards the levy. So we were able to keep the general fund and actually give back some monies. We received a $200,000 grant for SCBA's that we are hopefully expend this budget within this biennium. If we don't get the product before, FEMA doesn't let us collect the money until we get the product, so we've ordered the product, but if we don't get it this budget, then it's going to roll into our next biennium budget. But it's kind of monies that you don't see within the general fund, because it's $200,000 of FEMA money.
Buy it and get reimbursed.
Yes.
Basically.
And then the captains, the 3 captains we have, we had a SAFER grant from FEMA to cover those as well. And our second year of the biennium, or the first year of the biennium, we still have 35% of those 3 personnel covered by FEMA, but it doesn't show within the budget document here. It's kind of in the background. But we
Okay.
still have FEMA money coming in supporting those firefighters or those captains.
Okay.
And that FEMA money supports 3, is that what you said? Did I
Correct.
understand you correctly?
Mhm.
Okay.
The
Why
3
wouldn't-
captains. will be
The
there.
3
Yeah,
captains.
why wouldn't we see that?
It's under grants.
Oh, it's under the
It
grant.
comes in under the grants,
Okay.
yes, under general fund revenues.
Okay.
And how long is that sustained for?
It's a 3-year, and
3
we're
years.
2 years into it, so this next biennium budget will have 1 year of 35% of those personnel covered. The first 2 years is 75% covered by the feds, and the third year is 35% covered by the feds.
Is that something you can go back after?
No, when you write a FEMA grant, that's for additional personnel, and Gladstone doesn't need any additional
Oh, okay.
career personnel. The way we're set up now, responding 24/7 to calls and having a captain supervisor on shift 24/7, and the paid on calls work shifts with them along with responding from home. So
So for future budget.
Colette,
Yeah. Mhm.
page 27 shows the fire grants coming in.
And that consists of, for the current biennium, the SAFER grant that Jeff referenced, along with the SCBA grant.
Okay.
And then in the following biennium is the balance of the SAFER grant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
See it, yeah.
So it's 75% the first year and then 35%?
it's 75% the first 2 years,
First 2 years,
and then
okay.
the third year is 35%.
Okay.
And then the city needs to compensate.
Right, and essentially the budget shows that we're paying for it now.
Okay.
Just on the backside, it's being compensated federally by the government, by the SAFER grant.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you.
And made sure we said that. And as you can see, the next couple years, we're going to be replacing our last external defibrillator. Those are around about $25,000 each. That's how we, somebody in cardiac arrest, so we restart their heart.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be replacing them a little bit at a time each year. We bought one this last year. The next biennium we'll be buying another one, and that'll replace all our outdated units. And then, as you saw, we bought some kitchen appliances this last year, and this next year we'll be replacing the kitchen cabinets and that sort of thing out of our station building maintenance line item. And then We're going to continue to certify personnel to do tech rescue and rope rescue. So we do swift water, surface water, dive rescue, and rope rescue with that program. And then, of course, we'll be maintaining and upgrading our extrication equipment. As you can see, when you look through these line items, the equipment for maintenance and that sort of thing is kind of an expensive venture when it comes to the fire service. But as you can see, on the capital outlays, the ones that we moved over to the levy, the ones that are showing 0 are now on the levy.
Do the turnout.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the $100,000 increase you see in the biennium is a capital. We save $24,000 each year in general fund for a fire engine, and then $25,000 a year in the levy for a fire engine. We're currently sitting about $500,000 or some odd dollars in the general fund to buy a new fire engine, and another $300,000 in the levy. We currently our first out engine is a 2014, 13-14. So our backup engine's a 1996, I think it is. So it's 2 years. When you look at the NFPA recommendations for replacement, they say 15 years frontline and another 5 years in reserve. But we only have 2 fire engines. So if we bought a new fire engine and put our brand new 2014 reserve, it wouldn't be fiscally responsible. So we have to wait to make that purchase. And if we wait, that price goes up 3% a year. So with our savings, we'll be able to accommodate purchase within the next 2 to 5 years.
So you've got replacement funds.
Exactly. That's the increase it shows when you look at, we say we're status quo and then we've got an extra 100,000. That's the increase of the capital is showing in the lines. Any additional questions? Pretty much got notes for any line that you want to talk about.
Having the police and fire levies renewed was really, really helpful in this budget process, because it is allow us to continue with the same services that we are currently providing. Okay, so Jim, you want to start with Parks?
Parks, yes. Park and Recreation Department. It's basically a status quo budget with some increases based on some trending that we've been doing. Some of the highlights this last biennium is we got 2 grants awarded to us from the Oregon State Marine Board. One was a sediment analysis of the boat dock area for a future hopeful grant to get the dredging done. Which that has not happened yet, and we don't have that budget for it because we don't know what it will be. And the other grant we got was the replacement of the boat dock. So we just actually gave notice to proceed for that, and we should have that on site by the end of June. And then we have the in-water work period through this summer to get it installed. So that's kind of exciting, some noteworthy items. Some of the highlights in the upcoming budget as far as staffing. In this budget you will see 0.2 of an increase, and that is for some, you'll see in the when we get into the enterprise funds that we're going to increase a part-time office assistant to full-time and bring in an operations manager / project manager. We don't know 100% what we're going to call it, but we are going to have to start doing projects, so we're going to have to start managing those, and we're still trying to figure out what's the most effective way to do it, but we want to include it in this budget. So the Parks is going to pay for 1/10 of each of those, and we're being pretty frugal there on the general fund to help support those, so most of those will be coming out of the enterprise funds, yes.
I don't see those grants listed here on page 27. Would they wouldn't be in the
That's in the previous budget that we got those grants, and then the one that we haven't received those monies yet. So the budget we're in now, you're talking about the boat dock and stuff.
Well, I see you've got a Marine Board maintenance grant.
Yeah, that's for the pit toilet down there.
That's for this current.
Yes, so that is for that's for the pit toilets down there. So we have an agreement when they did those that we have to do maintenance on it, and then we got to show them all of our maintenance, and they give us that, what is it, $5,000? $10,000 a year. So that's to maintain that pit toilet down there.
Okay.
So that's a grant that we got several years ago.
It just doesn't show anything for this budget here.
Right, because we haven't applied for the grants like the one we're gonna apply for when it comes available is that dredging. And so they haven't even put it out there for us to apply for yet.
Oh.
The other grants that
Fine.
we've gotten, we didn't know we were gonna apply for those when the last biennium budget was done. They just came available and then we applied for them.
Right.
So like the boat dock, we weren't expecting it to happen so quick, and literally like 3 months ago they says, we got some more money left over, you need to put in for this grant by the end of the month. And so we ran this grant together, and all of a sudden, now you gotta have it on site by the end of June. I mean, it was just a real hurry, so we didn't even have that in our last budget, and it'll be done before this budget starts.
Oh, it'll be done before July 1st?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, never mind.
Yeah, well, it'll be on site, and then we have to install it, and that's
I'm
our
sorry,
in-kind
I
work.
thought we were
and
talking about next
Yeah.
budget.
Grants are a
Okay.
little hard to budget for, and unless they're long-term grants,
Yeah.
like what you're hearing with police and fire, but the stuff we get, it's like, okay, go do it, you need it done by this time, and it may happen all during a biennium that we didn't know was gonna happen at the beginning, and it's done before it's over,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I
understand.
guess the question though is, where is it called out in an appropriations line, and where can you reflect the grant coming in and being dispersed? to the
Right, so
appropriations?
that's how Kathy works all the magic
Yeah.
when they do the grants, because when we do a grant, the process, the city's policy is that we bring it to council, and the council approves this grant. So that shows how much money's coming in, how much match, and all that stuff, and then that's when all the budget stuff happens, and then the money comes in and it goes out and stuff.
We would have it in the budget if we had an estimate on what is even going to be available. But since we don't, we'll wait to see what word we get.
So maybe
the
Colin's
application.
question, and my question certainly was, where does it get reflected in the books and when?
When we know what kind of dollars
Okay,
we're
so then
dealing
it
with,
is in
and
the
there
books, so
would
you
be...
could go back, a citizen can go
amendment
back and
then.
look at it in the
Yeah,
budget amendment
we would go back
process.
and we'd bring to you a supplemental budget process
Yeah,
to
I think
increase
going in,
revenues
coming in and
increase-
going out is probably not as technical.
True.
I want us to be very clear about how we go
Yeah.
through the appropriations
Yes.
process, please.
The expense would show here,
Thanks.
as far as what we were going to spend on the grant.
Mhm.
In the revenues, it would show the grant amount,
Right.
how much we'd be receiving.
Yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
usually what you see.
Yeah.
But I didn't know they were so quick to come in the middle of that's maybe the problem with the biennial budget process.
Yeah, I was just
There's
gonna
so
mention
many
that with the biennial budget,
changes
Yeah.
that
I
can
can write a
happen over
grant
2 years.
the first year and get it
Yeah.
received by in that first year, and then have to expend it by the end of the budget, and it won't even be on the budget
A
document.
little more juggling there, yeah.
Well, like this one, for example, even if we were on a one-year budget, it still would have made no difference, because it literally, we put in for this thing in February, and now we gotta have it on
That's
site by the end of June.
That's unusual.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a crazy one.
That's gonna be very unusual.
And it's not, that grant there, it was not too expensive,
Yeah.
nor,
Well,
you know,
For the city's match
for
part,
the city's
yeah.
match part, so it was something we were able to more absorb.
Yeah. Well, and the council had to approve it, so.
Yes,
Mhm.
yeah.
We
No, all
got-
grants, before we sign the grant,
Yeah.
we get approved and everything, but before we sign, we go through the city's grant policy.
It's on their heads,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, absolutely. Okay, so in the back end of the parks budget, so we went through the FT, and you'll hear that, I'll touch on all the enterprise funds as well, so you'll hear this over and over, and then I'll kind of recap at the end once we're done with the enterprise funds. So you'll notice that the contractual and professional services went up by about $20,000. That's based on trending that we're doing, and we're gonna be adding a porta bathroom up at the nature park, starting the new budget, so that's got some cost, so that's some of the reasons why both the contractual and the operation and maintenance is going up. Just basically where we're trending now and what we're spending. Fleet, fuel, maintenance, and repairs, you look in the middle of the materials and services, you'll be hearing this on every one of my items that I talk about. Back 3 years ago, the City Council approved a fleet and equipment replacement policy, and we are 3 years into that, and we have 2 more years of heavy lifting, and it is actually far exceeding my expectations on the savings in our maintenance, and you'll start seeing that in all these as we go through. For example, just in the parks alone, we estimated about $65,000 in repairs of equipment and stuff in the biennium we're in now. We're trending, we were able to drop that down by $23,000. That we're not having to, because now we're not having to maintain rigs that, you know, we're not going to put a motor in a rig. I mean, we're able to do tires and brakes, you know, the basic stuff on maintenance. So it's actually turning out to be a whole lot better than we expected. I expected 5 years before we start seeing the big drop, but we're seeing it 3 years in, so I expect it to even get better as we do this last 2 years of heavy lifting. Another one that's we dropped down was you'll see a negative in is the small tools and equipment. We dropped down by 20,000. The utilities gone up by 25,000, and that's just what it is. Basically, what we're trending. You know, your water, your sewer, your electric, all that stuff for our parks. Dumping and hauling, you'll hear this on every one of mine as well. We dropped down by 7,000, and the reason why is we are finding it very, very difficult to bring an outside trucking service in to haul off our debris, you know, our mud, our dirt, and bring in gravel and all that stuff. So we're having to haul most of our spoils out in with staff. So we're absorbing that in our FTEs versus spending on contractors. So yet another reason we're kind of beefing up some of our overtime or beefing up some of our FTEs, because we're having to do that in-house now. And so that's consuming some time. We bring a lot of dirt in and we haul a lot out. There's a lot of stuff going on there.
Does
So
that save money by hiring more FTE and doing it ourselves then rather than, or is it just kind of
it's probably a wash. I mean, it's really close. I would say it's a little more expensive in-house right now. Where that's going to get better in this next biennium budget, we're going to be replacing one of our dump trucks, and we have 5-yard dump trucks, and we have 2 of them. We're going to replace one of them with a 10, 12-yarder. So now we're going to be able to haul twice the material out, and that's what the contractors are using, is a twice, you know, so they're making half the trip. So then I think we're going to be real competitive with contracting. Yeah.
When's that replacement, Jim?
What's that?
When's the truck replacement?
In this next biennium.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's shared by all the departments. So you'll see in the equipment and replacement reserves in all of the public works funds, we are continuing to stay on schedule with the policy that was adopted 3 years ago.
You're spreading it across.
What's
You're
that?
spreading it across the
Yes,
department.
absolutely. Park's not paying so much for it because they don't use it much. I really try to spread it out where it's being used the most. So, you know, your streets, your water and sewer are probably spending the most on that dump truck.
Okay.
That's it for the parks part. The recreation, it's pretty much a status quo from what we've been doing in the past. The only thing you'll see that's gone up a little bit is the special events. We increased that by $3,000 over the 2 years, and what that is for is we're hoping to help start participating more in like the Halloween events, you know, some of these other events, the holiday festival, just some of these community events that go on. We want to start. We've been kind of, you know, we've been buying candy for the parade and doing stuff like that, and we've kind of been just paying for that out of our other budgets. Well, we thought it was appropriate to actually show it and to create a line item instead of pulling it out of here and there. So, but we're going to start getting more involved in some of the community events as our plan. And this is just kind of the start. We can start doing some, you know, buying some candy, some flyers, or doing whatever.
So you'll remember I referenced that we had an IGA with the school district for community school. Traditionally, this is where we have pulled that money from. So we have zeroed it out here, and that's part of the community promotions business development. That'll be about $24,000 per year. So we've already got that money budgeted for, but it's coming now out of the administration line item budget.
Yeah, from staff, we couldn't ever figure out how it really got into recreation anyway, so we kind of try to figure out a better place to put it.
So
Yeah,
I'm just thinking, you talked about increasing the budget for special events. You want to do more through the Parks and Recreation thing. Could that be something like movies in the park during the summer or something like that?
Yeah, if we made some more dollars in there.
What do you think you'd need for that?
I don't know. I haven't looked at it. I know a while back I was thinking about that exact same thing, moving the park, but to buy that equipment or even rent it is pretty costly, I remember. And then staffing it after hours or whatever. But I could look into that. It's just I didn't look at it for this budget.
What were you calling that?
Movies in the park.
Oh, I didn't hear.
Yeah, they have these
that
like
part.
big blow up screens and you know all this cool stuff, and
That'd be awesome.
it'd be awesome. But this, again, when we get through this whole budget and at the end, you'll kind of see where we're kind of having to be cautious in what we throw in here as extras. That's why it's kind of generally a status quo, with the exception of the enterprise funds, which isn't general funds.
Right.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
So your salary is split between all the different
Correct.
funds? Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanna
And
make
the way
sure.
that is done, there's our office staff and myself are split evenly between the funds.
Including Parks and Rec?
Including Parks, but it's only, because we have 5 funds, I think 1/10 goes to this and then 20% to the rest. So it's not an even split, but it's
Okay.
trying to do our best guess on the
I would
time.
divide it.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
just make sure that you're included in all.
Absolutely, yes.
That's where that cost allocation plan will really be helpful in the next biennium to do that too, so we know we're appropriately spreading those costs around certain funds.
Well, the small city, it's kind of difficult. What I'm used to, the way Public Works does, is they actually have a support services fund. And that's where myself and the office staff that supports the Public Works, and then everybody transfers into that, and that's their support. But the way our budget is take a piece of me out of everybody. So it's just a different way of doing it. I know Kathy'd love to go that route because it's a way easier. Everybody transfers in, and you have a separate budget for support. But the city of Gladstone's not there yet, maybe in the future. And they'd make it very clear where everything's going. But
I don't know that you could end up doing that with all the funds that you have that have to be kept separate and managed separately.
yeah, so how you would do that is basically, the numbers would all, at the end of the day, the numbers would be the same. It would just make it clear, like I was explaining, the tenth of me is out of parks and 20% out of this, and all the way through. You would take that same money and you would just create another fund called support services. And then where that's clean is everything that is to support everybody. Every time we get an invoice, this is for all the departments, we have to put 5 account codes on that. And they have to enter each one 5 times versus 1, support services. So it just helps on the administrative end, and being clear is what it is. The numbers don't change.
Well, it makes sense
Yeah.
if you can do it with your funds.
Yeah, no, it is. But we're just not there yet, but maybe in the future sometime. But it would help answer those types of questions. It would just be, oh.
So just take a percentage of each budget and tag that as admin
Well,
or
10% of my wages would be 10% of that transfer out of the parks into the support services, same with every other fund. So really, it's not like the budget would increase or decrease. It would just be a better way of showing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Rather than a direct charge that's done through transfers in and out, and they're substantiated based on a cost allocation method.
We actually had to create a stamp because we have so many invoices that come in that we split across all the funds, and a stamp, and it gets charged all 5. We made it really easy on our end, but poor finance doesn't get it that well because they have to enter. You get a $100 invoice and you got to split it 5 ways.
True.
That's where it starts getting a little cumbersome, and would be the advantage in the future sometime to fix that.
Okay.
So any other questions on Parks and Rec?
Can you tell us why the associated payroll costs took such a humongous jump?
I was just looking at that and thinking that question would be coming.
Yes.
Part of that is because we are bringing in some new positions that are spread out to parks, taking part of it, et cetera. And on a new position, we budget conservatively, so we put them in at, say, like mid-scale, and we also put them in at the highest PERS rate and the highest medical rate. So their associated payroll costs can end up being anywhere from 65 to 80% of their actual salary. So that is why this is looking so high right now, because we do have a couple new positions coming in that will factor into this. And then previously on the 2017-19 budget there, it shows 68,000. That was a totally erroneous number for what the associated payroll costs were. If you look at the previous 2 years, you can see that the actual 1-year fiscal prior to that was over 69,000, and the year prior to that was 47,000 there. So the 68,000 was a erroneous number, as I say.
Okay.
So these associated payroll costs will most likely come in lower than what we're showing here. But as I say, with new positions, we project high. We never know if they're going to come in with a huge family and could be tier 1 PERS, et cetera, but many times they usually come in a lot lower.
New positions are created. Do they get pensions promised for retirement, or is it defined contribution, like 403Bs, that kind of thing?
There's a variety of them. The PERS are more the defined benefit plan, the tier 1, tier 2. OPSERP is more defined contribution type of plan. But the rates are expensive on all of it right now, and will continue to be too, so.
There's not a whole lot of tier 1.
No, there aren't, but we're still paying for them.
Right.
And here at the city, there are a lot of long-term employees, and there's a lot of tier 1. So it'll take a while before the city as a whole will start to see the rates trend down. Yeah.
Does Gladstone have responsibility to state pensions or is it just local ones? Like, do we have to pay a portion of the state's?
No, it's allocated based on your employee base, you know, but we are part of the state pool.
I see.
But it's allocated based on the employees that we have.
Okay.
And then also the retired employees, needless to say, too.
And then one more question for you, Jim. On
Yes.
your part-time seasonal, you're dropping that down. Is that because you're hiring full-time, or
So,
you didn't
good question.
get enough? I know you talking at Parks
Right.
at one point. You're having a hard time even getting somebody.
Yes, so part of that is I'm still hoping to get seasonals.
Okay.
The other part is our half-time office assistant right now has been split up between the seasonals line item in all of our budgets, because it was
Oh.
part-time, but it was spread out over the whole year.
Okay.
So bringing that in full-time, we'll pull it out of there, and that actually puts it up into the salaries piece.
Okay.
Kind of not completely proportional, but there is a change there, so that'll go down a little bit, and the salaries will go up a little bit. Yes. Any others? All right.
Senior Center. Well, you know, to be a broken record, it is a status quo budget. I mean,
Nothing sexy, you're saying.
you know, we're old, so you know, just being old is sexy. So I guess we have that. You know.
Good recovery there.
You know, I look at my budget and I try to be fiscally responsible and practical in all shapes, forms, and fashions, down to the pens and pencils and the paper we use. I mean, I'm not a micromanage, but I micromanage my budget. So the buck stops with me. So you know, that's how I feel about it. So I try to be really responsible and practical. Any increase that you see is you know, it reflects, like, take example, your nutrition program increase. You know, that's me looking at, you know, food costs in the future that's rising, and how that's going to affect the supply chain. Therefore, it's going to affect my costs through the contract, the social services contract that I have. I also want to expand it and provide more nutrition for seniors, more variety. Just a lot of things like that. So that's what I'm looking at. You'll also see a dramatic decrease in one budget item, you know, and that was when I received money to purchase a Jeep, and that $11,200 was thrown in there for some reason, and over the year, the following biennium, I just was not, I didn't use it, so I didn't request it again. I looked at what I really needed, and you see it reflected right there, $2,500 versus $11,200. So that's just, you know, being, again, you know, fiscally responsible. So that's how you can, that is what you can see reflected in this whole budget. Any questions for me? Mindy?
Pick me. The plant and estate money, so did you use all of that for the roof?
No, so what that is, that plant and estate was part of an agreement that the city made with the Gladstone Seniors Foundation. When they reestablished themselves, they agreed to create a financial plan, and once that financial plan was completed and submitted to the city for review and we approved it, we transferred those funds to their responsibility.
Oh, okay.
So the funds to pay for the roof did come from the foundation out of the plant and estate.
Okay.
But that money is now in the foundation. The city is no longer holding it on the books.
Got it.
Yeah.
And then I had a question about, on your tram expenses.
Mhm.
Your tram expenses are $12,500 on page 42. However, on page 28, it says tram trip, $17,000. So that's a $4,500 difference. Are the seniors not getting to go to the casino? That could be.
We don't
Or
take them to
Mount
the casino.
St. Helens?
No, we do. But there has been a change.
Okay.
We were informed this last year that we can't go outside of the city of Vancouver limits. So your trips to St. Helens
No.
can't happen anymore.
Okay.
So we did reduce them, but I also looked out, if we have to reduce them, where else can I go? Different places within the state. I can go pretty much anywhere within the state of Oregon, within reason.
Right.
You know, I don't want to try to, you know, climb falls, but, you know, if I wanted to, I could.
Casino.
Yeah.
But
Can't
it
go to
still
casinos.
has a
You
17...
can't go to casinos?
I cannot drive to casinos
Ah.
with my agreement with Right Connection.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
But you still have the $17,000 on one line and 12,500 on another. What,
So they're making a profit.
we're not using that fund, really? You're not using it, or I guess I don't understand how come that doesn't match.
Well, this is the expense of it, and the other is the revenue.
Mm-hmm.
So we're actually making a profit of about 5,000 on
Off of senior citizens?
Mm-hmm.
You betcha.
We appreciate every penny.
And it's
Okay.
suggested donations.
And suggested
Yeah.
donations. Okay, that's good to
So
know.
we do daily trips, like, your personal appointments, the hairdressers for Gladstone residents.
Mhm.
You heard of
Trips
that.
to the senior center, the DMV, wherever, within a 15-mile round trip radius, we'll take somebody on a personal appointment. It's suggested, one-way donation is $1. That's all they're asked to pay is $1.
Oh, okay.
And that's all we could ask for them with our agreement with Ride Connection. So we receive money. But when I turn that trip over to the Clackamas County, which I have a social services contract, I receive $15 for that one-way trip, just for providing it. So if that resident pays $0, I still make $15
So the county's paying you
through a contract.
through a contract.
Because the county does not provide social services.
Okay.
It does to developmentally disabled, but not to seniors.
Okay,
Certain
so-
services.
So a senior can call up so I could call up and say, I need you to take me to the doctor.
As long as it's a 15-mile round-trip radius.
All right?
And you're
Well,
a senior
I
citizen.
didn't realize that was
And
part
the
of
city of
I was
Gladstone
picturing
residents.
everybody on the yellow
Yeah.
bus heading on a trip.
And,
Okay.
and that's
I
65 or
didn't know
older?
that.
No, it's 60 or older
60
for
or older.
Gladstone.
Budget committee meeting.
I am there.
No, really. If it's within, certain hours and the days that we do that, which is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Okay.
And then we provide excursions on Fridays typically. So they go to plays, they
Okay.
go to, all kinds of fun places.
That's good to know.
So-
Okay. Thank you. I thought
Absolutely.
maybe they were
That's
missing out on something.
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay. I had a question under nutrition program
Uh-huh.
supplies. So that's offset by the meal charges and Medicaid funds, is that correct?
We
Okay.
receive money too for that.
Right.
You
I
know,
just wasn't sure
the
which.
one thing to keep in mind with that is there's always going to be that really quaint balance to be even, because it costs this much, and we only ask such a donation of this much.
Yeah.
So the donations that we receive kind of close that gap. Some years it's going to be bigger, some years it's going to be zilch,
Well, I noticed the Medicaid funding was down $30,000.
because of the amount of Medicaid clients.
Really?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not in our control,
Right.
so.
I just wasn't sure if a program had changed.
Well,
that we weren't
programs are
tapping
always,
into?
no, it's not us, it's county tapping into the state funding,
Okay.
so. That's about it. Yep. Any other questions? Thank you.
So moving on to the library, as we mentioned, this is a very exciting transitional time in this next biennium. We are keeping a status quo budget in 2019-2020, but we are currently working on an IGA with Clackamas County to transfer all of the employees over to Clackamas County, as well as the facilities. The timing of that, though, may not come to fruition by July 1, so to be safe, we budgeted status quo in 2019-20, and if that transition does happen, then we can go ahead and make the proper adjustments. And then in 2021, that's where you will see that first $200,000 payment going forward.
So July 1st is the target date?
July 1st is the target date, yes. Thank you.
Oh, I better take a drink of water.
A lot of numbers.
Oh,
So-
Spread out
we
that
need a
FTE.
separate session just
I
for you. and
know,
for
exactly.
fun.
I'll try to be,
It's
I'll,
always the messiest part of any budget.
yes. Well, I will do my best not to live up to my or your expectations of my past
No.
experiences, but so for the most part, we're doing okay. We're doing fairly well in public works, and I'm talking about maintaining our system now. So we've came a long ways in this last biennium with some of the rate increases and developing a stormwater utility and stuff. Sewer being the only exception, and when we get to sewer, we'll talk about that a little bit. In our road and street fund, you've probably been hearing about the vehicle registration fee, whether it's going to get implemented or not. We did not include it in here, and if it does happen in this next biennium, we will do a supplemental budget and make adjustments that we didn't want to put in there because it's a maybe.
Yeah.
You know, so we did not include that in here if anybody was, anybody's questioning. What we did in here, again, on the personnel services, which we already talked about, we're adding that full-time office assistant and an operations manager. And again, I don't know if that's what we're going to call it, but we know we need some more help. We're trying to figure out the best use of my skills and our staff skills, and where does this person fit in best, and what we're going to look for. So we're basically plugging in a position spread out over all the funds.
So Marna, is that her position?
No. So we have 2 part-time positions that don't even equal a full-time. So what that's going to do is Marna's going to continue working the hours she's working, and we're going to take Kristen and take her from part-time to full-time. So she'll be in the office full-time.
Okay.
Marna is going to kind of go into more of a specialty stuff, helping with future projects and getting stuff going.
Okay.
Grants. She has actually worked more in her part-time this last spring because of these boat dock grants and all these grants, because they are so time-consuming. So we'll be able to split off from that a little bit better. So
Okay.
when you're trying to answer phones and people walking in and you've got a deadline on a grant, all of a sudden you don't get anything done that day. So this is kind of how we're trying to fix all that. So some of the big highlights here, if you go down into materials and services, in the middle there's that 50-50 sidewalk. As many of you may know, at the last biennium when we put this together, I had this big bright idea that we can do a 50-50 sidewalk share and to help people get their sidewalks fixed and do, if it's not meeting city code and stuff. We spent almost a little over a year trying to get a contractor on board to put this together, and the contractor's so busy, it was just a dead-end street, so we pretty much just gave up on it. We just couldn't get a contractor to get a contract with on a set price and all that. They're just, nope, too many variables, too many this, and we don't want to deal with that 2 panels and we can go do a whole subdivision, type of thing. And that's just the way the market is right now. It's really, really difficult. Kind of same conversation with the dump trucks. They're just not there, but there will be a day when they'll all be hungry and they'll be knocking on our door. So I just wanted to explain why that disappeared in this next biennium, but obviously we'll just use that money elsewhere. Again, fleet and fuel down a couple lines. We were able to spend $35,000 less than what we anticipated, or we're budgeting for $35,000 less because of what we spent this biennium. So I think that's great news. I didn't expect it to happen so quickly, but that's awesome. Again, the dumping and hauling down towards the bottom, we're doing that in-house. So those are some of the big differences there. On to the sewer fund. So as I mentioned, the sewer fund, that's the one exception, and we've been having conversations with council about this on doing rate increases and stuff, and council gave us the go-ahead to include in this budget to raise our utility rates as a whole, so water, sewer, and storm, the bill will not go up more than 10%. So what we're doing is we're really leaning heavy on the sewer end, but the total bill won't go up more than 10% is what we're shooting for. But we got to deal with sewer because it's the one that's needing the most because of the mutual agreement order with DEQ for dumping raw sewage into the river. So we're on a timeline to get some projects done to make that stop. So we're going to have to start aggressively going after that. Again,
your people, or you're buying that out?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to try to do as much as we can in-house, but there's going to be some consultant work that needs to be done, and you'll see that in the contractual services line item, and professional services went up there. We're anticipating on doing some consultant work there.
So that's engineering?
Yeah, putting together the reports and, far as the field work, that's where we think we'll come into play, doing some of the smoke testing and doing some of the field studying, and then get them the information. And, you know, we're going to have to learn from somebody too. Obviously the city's never done this, so we're going to have to figure out how to best do an I&I study in the town. So that's again kind of justifying the other position and up in our office staff a little bit as well.
Yeah, I have just one quick question.
Yes.
The right-of-way fees, $892,000 total for the biennium, next biennium. I mean, that's new. So, if you look on the next page, is that, no, the right next page, 49.
48?
No, 49.
Oh.
Is that where it's all split out between the different funds?
Okay, so the right-of-way story.
Well, that's okay.
No, it's not a story. It's a.
Yeah,
this needs some explanation.
Okay.
At our last council meeting, we actually asked for some direction on. Well, we're going to make a change, and that's going to be coming at the next council meeting to redirect some of those right-of-way funds, because in the resolution it says to use those right-of-way funds for city infrastructure in the right-of-way. But then the very next sentence it says put it all in the street fund. Well, then you're not able to use it for all the infrastructure in the right-of-way, like your water, your sewer, and your storm. So what this is showing is all the money's coming into the general fund. If you go back here in right-of-ways, it's there.
Right.
And then what it's doing, some of that is coming out of the utilities. So, because if you're charging all the other utilities, you have to charge your own utilities, so they all go into this fund. And then what you're doing is we're going to change that to fairly evenly distribute that out amongst all of the utilities. So you'll see this, I don't want to say shell game, but Kathy can probably explain it best.
Just elaborate on one thing. The right-of-way fees are actually being moved to the street fund. They were all coming into the general fund, distributing out.
Right.
Now we're bringing them all into the street fund, and you'll see that the $892,000.
Right.
The portions going out of the street fund are for the percentage that Jim was talking about, that we're starting to put into water, sewer, and storm, so that it can be used on their infrastructure needs. And the portions that you see transferring in under revenues coming in from sewer, water, and storm are the 5% on income that Jim is talking about, that we have to more or less charge ourselves for.
Okay.
So it's back and forth, but it's
coming
all there.
in under road and street, and then it's going out over here in transfer outs to general fund, sewer, water, and and storm.
Yes, the general fund is the administration.
That's what I assumed.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure my assumption.
Kathy did a lot better explaining than me. And those percentages, in the original one it said 1.7% to administration for administering all that.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it goes into the road fund. So what we did is we split that up. We turned that 1.7, we made it 2%, because it really, we're finding that's just not quite enough to administer. It's a lot of work. And then we're putting 20% in the water, sewer, and storm, and the remaining 38% into the road fund. Yeah. So that's how it's being split up.
Yeah, then that's how the numbers added up for me. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, and then the sewer fund, this one took the biggest hit on that that mistake that was made in the last budget that Kathy was talking about. If you look at the beginning fund balance and look at your 17-19 versus your...
Kind of what I guessed.
Yeah.
That was
so
a boo-boo.
You know, when you double your biennium, that kind of throws you off a little bit. But anyways, this is getting us... we're back on track.
Okay.
But as you can see, that's over $1 million hit.
Sorry.
Yeah, I know. So going down through the line items, again, same thing in sewer fund, with the spreading the new positions out. Contractual and professional services I talked about, that's going up because we're going to be doing this I&I study, and so we're anticipating some contracting out of some of that work. The next big change, you go down to the fleet fuel in the middle. Again, this was a $50,000 savings over what we anticipated on spending in this biennium we're in right now. So we're expecting to spend $50,000 less in the next biennium, which is great. Dumping and hauling down towards the bottom of the materials and services, again, a $15,000 reduction because we're doing it in-house. And I'm going to recap all these at the end. I'm just mentioning them all as we go through.
My concern with that is going to be if they're doing dumping and hauling, what isn't getting done?
Exactly, but it's
not a matter
gotta...
of the money necessarily, it's what isn't getting done
Yeah.
when they're busy driving and dumping and driving and dumping, and that's, anyway,
Yeah.
that's my concern.
It sucks, but I'll be honest with you, but
If
it
you
has
could-
to be done, and we
yeah.
can't get anybody else to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
So we have to do it in-house.
Right.
We're gonna get more efficient at it, and we do use it as fill-in. Okay, a job got done that day, a guy's got an hour, go fill that hour in with that. So I mean, we're being pretty efficient about it, and once we get a larger truck, we're gonna be twice as efficient.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
true, that will help.
Yeah, yep. Sewer fund, on the next page. Nothing really big there. Water fund. I like that picture. And that actually, we have several of those pictures. No, this is drinking water, you can drink that. It's good.
Yeah, it looks drinkable to me.
Our drinking water.
Yeah, there you go.
Potable.
Oh, it's funny. So the water fund is pretty much staying fairly status quo with the exception of adding the split of the personnel in the, that we've been talking about in there. Again, the big highlights there is that fleet and that dumping and hauling. Water, 60,000 reduction from what we had previously. And out of that 10% rate increase, as you look in the budget highlights, that's going to equate to about $1.10 and $1.15. $1.10 first year, $1.15 the next year in a rate increase. That's approximately 10% of the water fund, but the overall fund it's like 1.5% or something. So there's we got our whole utility bill split up amongst three. That's kind of it on the water fund. It's really just we're trying to keep that afloat, and we're going to be focusing on sewer.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
So employee appreciation only shows up in general fund, admin, and the police department?
Yes.
Do you guys not care
We
about
don't
your
appreciate our
employees?
employees at all.
All right.
No, I'm just kidding.
Look at the water he's drinking.
No, as a matter of
Nobody
fact.
else cares.
Yeah, exactly. No, so the appreciation fund, that's for the whole city, to get the whole city together, but Public Works absolutely does. We do a Christmas holiday barbecue, kind of a potluck, but we supply the turkey and the time to do it and stuff like that. So we do.
For your special days.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, our Public Works Week day, which is again coming up in May.
What's
Yep. May 23rd, I think, but it's the Wednesday of National Public Works Week, so
Okay.
whatever week that is.
Yep, I knew that was coming up.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So water, but yes, we do appreciate our employees.
I just didn't care.
No, we don't. We didn't want to create another line item. No.
Alrighty.
So where you'll see that come out of is our office supplies and equipment. We'll split that up amongst all the funds. So that's again that if we had it in support services, you probably would see that. But being that it's in all the funds, we don't split it out like that.
All right.
So our stormwater fund, as you can see, this fund just started this last biennium, so that's why there's no numbers in the actuals. And I would like to draw your attention to these two pictures on the left. This right here says a lot about your infrastructure in this town, and not being able to do that without the equipment that we have now that you all have approved us to get. This here, that line is up to be replaced. There's a real good chance that it's either going to be able to be pushed off for 10, 20, maybe not have to be done at all if we can start maintaining it. We just doubled.
Because that would be good news.
No, we haven't got to your neighborhood yet. No, I'm just kidding.
I have that new one in my house.
Yes, but no, that was an awesome picture the guys did. They went out and cleaned it, and then they fixed it. So you literally that pipe was at half capacity.
That's that cleaner vacuum truck?
Yes. Yeah. Yep. As a matter of fact, that line right there, that's the line in front of the high school. And did the high school flood this year?
No.
And it has every year, so the guys tell me, so there you go. That's why it was flooding. The pipe's full of debris.
Whose sewer camera is that? You guys have sewer cameras?
We have just a push one, a real cheap one, but we contract out that right now, and we are going to do an assessment over this next 2 years and determine if it makes sense to bring that in-house. Because, again, when we go out and do a line like this, we need to have this thing TV'd. And if we can't just push a camera in there, which we can only go a little ways, we have to wait several weeks to get that in there. And then did we do any good, or do we need to go back in there? Or if we had one on hand, and then the costs are just, it's astronomical. I'm expecting to find out the same cost numbers that I came up with for the Vector. You know, we came up with 4 different scenarios, and it was the most cost-effective to bring it in-house. I'm suspecting that's it, but I want to do the math before I come back to y'all to add that piece of equipment, because we don't have it now. So no, good question, and it is on our radar. Storm fund, going down through here, you'll see contractual and professional services going up a bit, and a big reason for that is the storm system owns part of these overflows to the river, so in catch basins. So catch basins, we're going to have to do some design and some pipe work out there to get some of these catch basins off from our sanitary sewer. So storm owns some of that, and you'll see it reflected there and down in our capital. Again, another savings in fleet and fuel of $40,000. I call it a savings. It's just what we anticipate on spending based on past practice, but now we're not spending it, so it kind of is a savings, you know, and so that's pretty good news. Same with the dumping and hauling. Another savings there of $17,000. So just to kind of recap on those ones that came up a lot, the total in fleet savings out of all of our budgets added up was $208,000. That pretty much after this next 2 years is going to half pay for all of our fleet replacement, just what we were paying for in fleet maintenance before not buying any equipment. You know, basically rebuilding engines, rebuilding motors, and staff time, and just all this stuff. Now a rig breaks down, and that's probably where a lot of the savings is. A rig breaks down, we put it on the row of shame, as we call it, and it's gone. We don't fix it. It's just ridiculous. So we're another 2 years, and the city's going to be sitting really good in our fleet, and we're going to be in a just maintain mode. But the first 5 years, we anticipate some heavy lifting, and you're 3 years into it, so we're close. Dumping and hauling, that savings, what we didn't spend in that, because we still have fees when we dump the stuff there, is about $90,000. And honestly, that's getting really close to an FTE. So, you know, in the next biennium, if we continue doing this, that may justify an FTE right there, or part of one.
When are you getting the new truck?
In this next biennium budget, I don't have, you know, sometime after July, but we haven't even started digging into that. But yes, during this next biennium, it's scheduled to be replaced. Yeah. Any questions for Public Works stuff? That was the end of it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Alrighty. So this is the levy budget, and this pays for about 22% of the police department's overall budget. From here, you'll see it pays for the SRO, K-9, the administrative assistant, and the community services officer, our code enforcement officer. On here, you'll see we've broken out the SRO and the K-9 so that we can really track our return on investment there. The K-9 program is doing very well. Our eventual goal will be to make it a dual response dog. So right now it's a patrol K-9, so it tracks bad guys. But as they get more experience under their belt, and they're doing that rapidly. Since the time I put this information together, they've almost doubled the amount of deployments that they've had, and had some really good successes. But as we move forward, we'll send them to additional training, and then they'll be dual certified, which means that they can also do sniff for drugs. That will be real helpful as well. So we'll get a little bit more use out of the K-9 that way. When they're not doing K-9 things, they're obviously doing patrol and handling calls for service. The SRO is Lee Gilliam right now. He is doing a wonderful job. We're spending a lot of time working on programs with kids in the school, and patrol is taking a lot of heavy lift here too. We're trying to do a lot of outreach, particularly where it relates to the children, and getting that positive interaction ahead of time. So we're spending a lot of time on that. And then he's also our SWAT officer. The upside to having a member on the SWAT team, it's a county-wide SWAT team. The upside to having that is the amount of training that he gets is very specialized, but he could bring all that back and share that with his coworkers, right? So we're basically using one guy on SWAT, but we're getting the benefit of all of that tactical stuff, better officer safety, and he's also a medic, so he's doing the tactical medical buddy save and things like that. So if we do have an incident where someone is hurt, there's training for self-care and buddy care through him as well. So that's really, it's kind of a good deal. And he's getting exposure to things that we wouldn't normally see, thank goodness, in Gladstone. So, you know, we don't want them here, but we want them to learn how to deal with them if they do come up. So it's very helpful that way. Again, this is basically money that's earmarked. This is where it's earmarked for, so there's not a lot of surprise or change here as well. Try not to use that same term again. Status quo. I'm trying to find another way to get around that.
So this fund pays for that position and that training?
Yes.
Okay. And is that's one of your sergeants?
No, he's a patrol officer.
Patrol officer?
Yeah, he's also a Coast Guard reservist. And it might interest you to know that one of our other patrolmen is a Bronze Star winner. Oh. Yep, quite a group.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. Chief?
Yeah, well, before I became your interim fire chief this last 7 months or so, I used to be the training chief. And this levy used to fund my position as, so actually had a levy funding my job for the last 20 years. And now we have Captain Roman, who's been promoted as training officer, and he's doing a really good job. And now he gets to be funded through the levy. But as you can see, we've kind of really focused on what the levy's covering, and we used to have the excess from the levy used to just go into capital at the end of the year. So we'd have, you know, some years we would have $50,000 going into the fire engine replacement, $100,000. But now that we've cleared out some money from the general fund and opened it up to go to other departments such as public works and administration and whatnot, we were able to put more money onto the levy and be more fiscally responsible for that. So as you can see, part of the stuff that came off the general fund, SCBA and turnout maintenance came from general fund to levy. Cell phone radio pagers came partially to the levy. Routine equipment replacement came into the levy. Turnouts and SCBA reserve. We used to, every time we got a grant, we would determine, okay, the turnouts last 10 years before they get outdated. Everything in the fire service, everything from medical supplies to our turnouts to our rope rescue equipment, everything's got a date on when it expires. And we can't help that. But we used to have a reserve to actually save up for that. So when we bought I actually got a grant 15 years ago for SCBAs, and it was $250,000. The SCBAs had a warranty and a replacement after 15 years. So what we did is we'd start these programs and save up money, so in 15 years from now, we'll buy the new SCBAs. Right. Well, I got another grant for SCBAs, so that $200,000 that we had saved in the reserve, we were able to put back into general fund and help other departments. Same thing goes for our turnouts. I got a grant 10 years ago for $100,000 for turnouts. Turnouts is our bunker gear that we wear inside structures when we're on fire. And we were able to replace and maintain those, so the money that we had saved within that reserve, we were able to go back into the general fund this year. And, you know, 5-10 years from now, they can start another reserve program to replace or write another grant. But we were able to, from getting a grant for SCBAs and getting a grant for the turnouts, we were able to do that. And we still have another grant sitting out there for $56,000 for another 12 sets of turnouts, a new washer extractor, and drying for equipment. They haven't announced those awards yet, so we still may be able to get some more turnouts and that type of equipment. An extractor and washer, those are expensive items. Even just the dryer that you roll out that holds 5 garments, it's $5,000 for this air dryer. You know, but you need to dry your garments. We're currently hanging them over our sink right now on a ladder and blowing a fan at it, you know, try to cool to dry the stuff off. But, you know, they actually have equipment that does that. So,
So, when you write this grant, is it for what, a year out, 2 years out, or?
it almost took a year to get the SCBA grant awarded, you know,
Okay.
because with the budgets and stuff federally, they close the government for a while, and then there's nobody working there, and they're in those offices and whatnot. So we have to spend the $200,000 for the SCBA's by August.
August of this year or August of next year?
August of this year.
Okay.
So that's why I'm hoping, Portland Fire just awarded their contractor for Scott Air Packs, the same brand that we use. So we're gonna piggyback on the Portland contract
Okay.
to make that purchase. But they're still in negotiation of what exactly that product's gonna be. Are they gonna have this? The new SCBA's, there's a new NFPA standard for 2018. And it hasn't been approved totally yet what's gonna be on the 2018, but they have a list of things that the NFPA is gonna recommend that it's gonna be for the new air packs. So we're either gonna buy a 2013 NFPA air pack or a 2018 air pack. That's kind of why I've been dragging my feet, because if I'm going to spend $200,000 on a product that lasts 15 years, I want to buy the most up-to-date and one that
Right, that's gonna last.
lasts and have all the bells and whistles of a 2018 versus a 2013.
And value for the dollar.
Mm-hmm. And of course we've got money in there, you know, for the position. Then we have swift water rescue, dive gear replacement, and then is all the tech stuff. Just having a dive team, swift water team, all those things not only have to have the yearly requirements for the training, but actual specialized equipment. You can see by that picture of the team. So we've got, these are the first 7 guys that went through the program. We'll be having at least 3/4 of our department certified at that level. Since we're surrounded by rivers, we want to be able to save people's lives in the rivers.
Not even that good.
Okay. Sorry.
So you've always had a dive team?
Right.
I mean, for years.
Mm-hmm.
Just expanding on that.
Yeah.
Were there any deaths last year?
In Gladstone?
Yeah.
We didn't budget for any.
No. No, we didn't. We still have the lifeguard program with AMR that provides, you know, from our peak season.
Yeah.
And a whole lot of people don't go down to the river unless they're fishing right now. You know, so. And we still have a regional water rescue team. All of Clackamas County, all of East County, Washington County, we're all part of the same team. So when we get dispatched, all our resources go together to those areas. So we could even respond clear up to the upper side of the Clackamas River or into Lake Oswego, depending on what kind of water rescue. We all train together and get certified at the same level.
Okay. All right. So we're moving on to the Civic Buildings Capital Fund. This again is where money gets moved quite a bit. The funding that came in for this last year, it is all exclusively ending up in the Urban Renewal District. And then we move it from Urban Renewal into the Civic Building Capital Fund on an as-need basis. That way it stays invested and is earning a very good rate of interest as long as possible until we move it into actually spend it on the bills here. So you see it shows the $12,766,000, which is the balance of the budget up to the 13.8 of the total budget for the building. And we're anticipating we've put it all into 1920. Anything that is not spent by the end of 1920, of course, will move to the next fiscal year. And you see it's offset by the capital construction. So it's really clean the way that all operates. This, of course, is, as we talked about with the debt, we'll tie with that also, too. The Municipal Court Fund, this one is a bizarre Oregon budget law. That's all I can say, because what we're doing is we're pulling in all the fines and fees from all of the tickets that are issued, and then we send that money right back out to the state, the county, or the portion that the city gets to keep. But we still have to show it as revenues and expenses, and it's not. It's just a pass-through, but that's what we have to do. So it inflates your income, inflates your expenses, and keeps Oregon happy for some reason or another.
It doesn't look like much at all.
Actually, well, where you would see that is when you come over to the general fund and you see the fines and forfeitures.
On what page?
That would be on page 27.
Okay.
And you can see it there. This is our portion coming back in at 375 and 400,000. So
Okay,
a total
so
of
it just
775
Very
for the
bottom.
year. Yeah, the very bottom of it, fines and forfeitures there.
Okay, so.
Yeah. So that's basically how that runs through. You'll see a little bit of a difference in the dollar amount because, of course, we're off a month. You know, we're collecting one month, sending it over the next month, so there could be a little bit of difference there.
I have a question. I'm sorry, is that a typo on the, it says on the top of page 63,
True.
local budget law,
Oh, there's an E missing.
is there an E
Oh,
missing?
there is an E missing.
Okay, I just felt like I hadn't added anything, and I wanted to.
Okay.
Nice.
Thank you so much. We'll get that fixed.
All
All
right.
right. Thank you.
Better go get a cookie.
Yeah, absolutely. And then as we go into the next one there for closed funds, this is where we closed the state shared funds 2 years ago. On April 11th, 2017, City Council authorized the closing of that fund, and that revenue is just all within the general fund. It's part of our state shared revenues. One of their calculations they make off of the liquor sales, and it is strictly for general fund use, so there is no reason to have a separate fund for that. And then the library capital fund is, as you know, no longer viable capital project. So as we adopt the budget this year, part of it will be a request by council to close that fund also.
And what happens to those funds?
Well, there really aren't, it's just numbers
Okay.
on a page at this point.
Okay.
If we had maintained, had decided to keep it, then needless to say, there would be funds put to it. But at this point, there's nothing more to carry, and there was never any cash, actually placed there. And that is basically all of our funds. Going into the final section there, we have a summary of FTEs. There's some information at the bottom as far as some of the changes that have gone on there. The next page is on the debt service, and this gives you some background on the small amount of the debt that the city has, which is admirable that it is so low. Water full faith and credit note that was issued back, it was recently refunded, so there was a $200,000 savings in interest overall on that. The general full faith and credit note, of course, is the one that was issued with out of the general fund for $3 million, and it was loaned to the Urban Renewal Agency, which transfers payments from the Urban Renewal Agency back to the general fund to make the annual debt service payments. And the bottom of the table there shows what the future debt requirements are for both this general fund note and the water note until those are paid off. The one for the Urban Renewal Agency, of course, is listed in their budget. And then we have the financial policies listed in here, the Gladstone financial policies, of which are very standard, very good. The one thing we wanted to bring to your attention is on the bottom of page the top of page 72, where it says number 4, fund balance. This is the only restriction that is placed on any of the funds within the city. Basically, where is 10% will maintain an unrestricted fund balance of at least 10% of fund revenue. That's considered operational fund revenue, so you wouldn't calculate that 10% against grant monies, things like that. Just the operational standard every year type of fund revenue. So I calculated that against the highest amount of fund revenue that we had between the 2 fiscal years, and that's where we arrived at the number of the $1,000,002 that we are it's a little less than $1,000,002. It was $1,000,001 and change that is the reserve that we should have, that we've established based on that 10%. And we're a little over that at $1.2 million as far as ending fund balance in the general fund. So that's where we calculate then the amount of money that was more or less left over. Okay, so that takes us through the budget book. Oh, I take that back. There's the glossary, but that's not really very interesting.
No.
Where's the options?
What's the
That's
option?
Okay,
next.
that's next.
That's what was needing to be handed out.
Are you good? You want a break or?
Should we take a bathroom break, everybody? It's almost, it's 5 minutes to 8. Let's go to 5 minutes after 8. Everybody gets 10 minutes to potty and think.
All right.
Do you want me to?
Make it fast.
We're in the
Okay,
rural
everybody.
district, and we can get it
It's 5
funded.
minutes after 8, and we are going to continue with the issues, number 6 on our list, issues and options discussion. And the person leading that is?
I will do that.
All right.
And actually, you know, it's really not issues. I think what we have is options. And, you know, when Kathy and I put this budget together, at the end of the day, when we look at the numbers, we're like, are we feeling good about the overall health of the city? And yes, we are. But most cities have a 5-year long-term financial plan. And they also do a cost allocation plan. And so that's why we emphasize that we feel that Gladstone really needs to do that in this next biennium, so we know what those projected revenues and expenses look like. Given that, the department heads, when we all met, we took a realistic look at the services that we're providing and what the council goals demonstrate to say, what is it going to take for us to do that? This is what's an options list, and this is a general fund options list. So really, the $100,000 that we're comfortable spending, it's $103,000 amount of allocation. This is what we have, over $841,000 worth of requests. And if you look at this, these are the things that, you know, the council has said that they want. They want consistent messaging in our community, and so we would have liked to have put in a consultant to do some of that public messaging. Right now we have a part-time HR position. We'd like to increase that to full-time. With the 57 employees that we have, we are barely keeping up with filling positions, collective bargaining, employee retention programs. Realistically, we'd need an office assistant for the new City Hall reception area that we have, and we should be increasing our accounting clerk from .5. I put these here not for you to have to figure out what options we want, but to show you what we feel our needs are in administration. But we also realize that we can't get there. So administration is conceding on those items. As you go down, you also have information technology. I do not know how we have gotten by with what we have. We have a contract employee that has been here 8 years that works 24 hours a week. And that is just barely enough to keep us operational with all of our computer needs and technology needs. We're moving into a new building in the next biennium budget, and it's going to be very important that we have somebody that can manage those infrastructure. So I'll talk a little bit more about IT in a moment, but I'm going to let Jim then talk about his realistic wants are as well.
Yeah, so with the facilities, the budget you've seen here was status quo, there's that word again, but what we would suggest is going from a half of a position to a full-time position, and that's based on the hours we've been spending out there. We track all of our time, what everybody's doing, and we know where the hours are going. So far this year, we have budgeted 0.5, or we budgeted 0.6, and we used 0.86, so we're almost at a full-time position. So what we are going to have to do is we're going to have to get more creative about what we do and don't do, you know, sticking to the basics if we don't add this position. But again, we know that it's most likely not going to happen. There's very little funds to go around. But we are prepared to scale back and not do, you know, just stick to the real, you know, structure of the buildings and stuff versus some of the minuscule stuff, and that will have to be happened by departments. Over this last year, this was a new fund. We really was going to, what does it take to do this? And so that's why we did all requests, and that's where we're at, is 0.86, based on this last 2 years. In the parks, so we have a very active parks board, and they have a lot of requests, and to do some of those, and we are actually having a work session with council tomorrow at the parks board to talk about goals over the next couple of years. And what we feel that we need to accomplish some of those requests are upping our utility worker position from, right now we are budgeted at 1.95, and basically 1.5 of that 1.95 is actually out in the field doing the mowing the lawns and doing that stuff. Well, where we're actually at, we spent so far this year 2.49. So we were literally over a half a position over what we budgeted. And I did the math. Where does that coming from? It's not like we added a position, right? Well, it's basically coming out of the sewer fund. Well, as you all know, we just talked about the sewer having issues. So, the needs are in the parks. The needs are in the parks. So that's where we go. Well, we're going to have to put those guys back in the sewer doing some of the sewer work because that's where the need is. If we don't get a lot of calls that say, hey, you haven't cleaned my sewer line, you know, so it's that squeaky wheel thing. So what we've been doing is we've been responding to that. What we are going to have to do is figure out how do we get back within our budget in parks. And that's going to be trying to figure out a half of an FTE less. But if we wanted to stay status quo, we'd have to add that half of an FTE. Add a volunteer parks coordinator. That is something that we feel this city would benefit from greatly, because there is a lot of volunteers in this community that want to do a lot of stuff, but it's just trying to coordinate and get all that energy focused and worked out and coordinate with staff and all that, and that would be great. That's something that we think this community could really use and fulfill some of those needs from the parks. We've been working with the parks for the last several years. System improvement projects. So in the last biennium, the budget committee gave $75,000 a year for a total of $150,000 for system improvement projects. Well, this year we're not able to add to that. We had to pull that out because, as you'll see at the end, you have $100,000 to work with. So that's where do we find the money? We couldn't add that $75,000 a year and do what we did this last biennium. So that's why you see that blank right there. We didn't add to that. So that's the Parks Fund. Wants or needs or issues and options. Nope.
So the beauty of this is, and I think I heard Steve say during our break, is he thought people were going to be duking it out. When's the real fun stuff start? And I can look at Kim, Colin, Jim, Kathy, Tammy Bannock, myself, and Jeff, and we all agree that our priority should be to hire a full-time IT person and bring them in-house. And that's why you see that shaded area there, is we believe we should spend our money on that position and then put the other $38,000 just in reserves for now, and let us get our new buildings built to see if there's any other cost to that, which there's always unforeseen expenses, but we're not sure, and allow us to also transition off of the library in this next biennium, but really try to focus on our infrastructure and dedicate those funds to that position.
That makes sense to me. You guys are the professionals. You guys are in the trenches doing the work, and as a citizen and a board member, I would rely on your integrity and your knowledge to point us in the right direction. So, for my thinking, that makes sense.
Well, you popped my bubble. My whole balloon thing I feel like the people in this town want to see something, and it's not happening. I know you don't want to hear that, but that's the bottom line.
Could you elaborate a little bit more, Mindy?
They're willing to pay for the library. I know the library, but we've been hearing about the library for 10 years. They're willing to pay for more things on the parks. We did the master plan 2 years ago, and people were willing to pay taxes to pay for that. So maybe that's what we needed to get going 1.5 years or 2 years ago to make sure that that was covered. People are willing to pay for more programs to bring their families and their neighborhoods together, and none of it's going to happen for another 2 years.
It's fascinating because I hear a lot of folks, as we talk about just stabilizing the infrastructure, tell us that they don't want to pay for anything. I mean, to be blunt. And so I appreciate some things like parks and what have you, but are you really hearing people want to pay for these things?
We did
I
a
walked
survey.
a lot of door-to-door walking this last year, and yes, they told me that.
Don't we have a survey that was done?
A part of the Parks Master Plan did a survey, and there was, I think it was a range of like $3 to $5, and like 70% or some percent, I don't remember the exact numbers, but was willing to pay more. But I know, having conversations with council and stuff since then, it's like the infrastructure was their main focus. If you were going to put that on your utility bill, for example, which is what most cities do.
Right.
So do you do that in lieu of, or do you increase that on top of the utility increases that we're doing, that we're trying to phase in slowly? And that's all your guys' call. If you want to we'll make it happen. It's just figuring out the resources.
All of where you're coming from. I'm just saying that, again, we're not seeing anything.
Right.
People,
Well, even in our utilities, as you've seen there, we're increasing these rates, but we're doing them fairly incrementally, and we're not in like 2 years going to start fixing the city. It's going to take 2 years just to get our sewer fund to where it should be to start doing some of these projects. And we got to keep doing this for at least 5 years to get to where in the front of the budget it talks about replacing our infrastructure on a 100-year cycle.
Right.
We have to raise rates 10% for 5 years to do that. We could raise it another 5% or whatever. Actually, it'd be more than that because we're way under $100, and have say $5 a month go to the parks and have it dedicated for that. Is the community, you guys representing the community, are they ready for that? Staff will make it happen, but it's just that's a policy decision, and staff can make it happen. But that's where we're at.
I think the community volunteer organizer would help a lot in that.
Right.
What she's talking about. But I think you're spending the money well, and I think the infrastructure is the most important thing. And we're way behind in that kind of stuff, so I like the way that you're spending the money, so I appreciate it.
Putting a roof on your house or buying all new kitchen appliances, you have to have the roof.
And I understand
you have to stop the
that.
leaks, but you'd really like the appliances because you can see them and you can use them. The roof just sits there. It's your infrastructure. It's not sexy.
Right.
Although the fire department's pretty
but
sexy.
It's gotta be.
Even all those pictures we put in there.
It's gotta be done. If you can make it sexy, you might be able to sell it.
Right. But one of the things staff is doing, we have been working with park boards quite a bit, and we're going to start investing in how to raise some revenues, and that's in park fees and stuff. That has been our direction, and as a matter of fact, like I mentioned, Parks is having a work session with council tomorrow night to talk about this type of stuff and set goals for the next year, and so that'll be a conversation that'll be happening tomorrow.
And talking about not being sexy, IT is not sexy. But in this day and age, it is essential that you keep up. Now that you've gotten caught up a bit, you've got to keep up. It moves so fast that you cannot ignore it for a couple of years, because by then you'll have to catch up again, and that'll cost extra.
We're finding out buying new equipment is a lot cheaper than actually maintaining the
Yeah, changing the oil in the car, you get a little more mileage out of your car, right?
And with IT, I mean, do we know, have we done a calculation on what our potential liability exposures are for, I mean, we have a contractor, correct? So we're not really we're exposed.
We're always
liability-wise, are we not?
exposed with your IT, but, 24 hours a week for a full-service organization like ours, we're not in compliance with everything that we're supposed to, and with the technology evolving and all of the softwares, the virus, the infrastructure, that's why I said we don't know how we've gone this long without having a in-house IT person.
Well, that's not even on top of the the criminal justice information system issues that we have to maintain in order to continue to access the law enforcement databases that we have to operate. We have to have somebody who can make sure that we are in compliance with those federal standards. Otherwise, we lose our access as a criminal justice agency to that database, and then we can't do law enforcement.
So, do you have your own person that
No,
you
that's the
contract?
IT
Same
contractor.
person.
And we contract him to do all our computers
Yeah.
and our apparatus for all our dispatching, just like the police department.
Yep.
I mean, everything's done by this
24 hours a
contractor.
week, and we barely are hanging by
Wow.
for that. And I think, though, holistically, though, yes, do you guys want to start charging fees in our parks
Yes.
or collecting revenue?
Yes.
Yes, that's a good, healthy, separate conversation outside of this, because I think this city is ready to go there.
No, I think one of the things I agree with what you guys are saying, and I totally understand the whole IT thing, but if these are needed, I think one of the things we gotta do is figure out how we're gonna get there. We can't just say, well, I guess this is a filed piece of paper and we'll look at it again in 2 years. We gotta figure out how we're gonna get here.
I'm not pushing back on you, but I mean, lately, social media is just not, they don't want to pay anything more in Gladstone. So who do we believe?
On social media.
No, because you know how this works, Mindy.
It's
You
the
know that they
squeakiest-
drive this, right?
It's the squeakiest wheel.
I get that,
Sorry.
but they still drive it, and you know we have
Loudly.
certain members of our community who are gearing up to go after the vehicle registration fee, right? I guess my point is, like, I thought that this was put together so we were looking at status quo, we're trying to stabilize infrastructure, and we really weren't putting the pressure on financially. We've been really cautious about talking about sewer and water rates, and we have a system that's failing.
No, I understand
I mean, I'm
that.
not pushing back on you, Mindy. I just trying to understand where those folks are that really want to step up and say, let's go, because I think that's what we all want,
Right.
is to go forward and get the infrastructure in place. And sorry, Colette.
No, so, Jackie, is the current contract for your IT person $134,400
For 2 years.
2 years.
for 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
At basically half-time.
Mm-hmm. So there is cost savings, because then we also wouldn't have to absorb overtime costs if
Right.
we needed that person.
Right.
for
I
here.
don't see that this is going to cost you that much more to hire somebody full-time for something that's absolutely essential, especially with your civic center. This person has got to be involved in the
Design.
internal workings, all your wiring and all your IT crap that goes into the civic center and the police station. I mean, they've got to be an integral part of it. Honestly, I wouldn't want a contractor. I would want an employee.
I agree.
I don't like the idea that you've got a contractor dealing with police and fire stuff.
Well, and
either.
accountability.
Not that this person, I'm sure, is very reliable and trustworthy, but I think there's a liability
I
there.
have gray hair for a reason.
You think you got it bad?
Look at us.
Been there, done that.
Add color if I want.
Sorry.
I don't know if you need a separate department. That's how you want to organize it, but I think you need somebody who's a professional and knows what they're doing. That's my 2 cents. So,
I just said my piece, that's all. I'm aware of what we need, and I'm aware of what needs to happen. I would just, like to put out there that, when one of us hits the lottery, if they could donate some of those funds back into the city, that would be great.
let's get some of these people that wanna pay more to the council meetings when we're having these discussions, right? No.
So do we need to make a motion on this, or what?
Just added in with the approved.
If you have concurrence, then we could add it into our budget, and then when that's the recommendation of the budget committee that goes to the council, yes.
Well, so Mindy, you could hold a vote or something of the budget committee, 7 of us.
As I understand, it's everyone, isn't it, though?
No.
Yeah.
Budget committee.
Not staff, but budget committee and council all vote.
On a budget committee, yes.
Yes.
They make a recommendation to the city council, and they're all voting members here. And then the city council could approve it
Does the
at their
city
meeting.
council vote on something like this, though?
It will be added into the approved budget. If you
Right,
approve
it-
if you all are in
We're
favor
not-
of this.
We're
we
not
will-
gonna approve it tonight, so you'll add it in, and then we will discuss it some more at the next meeting. I assume.
City council.
Or we approve it tonight, right?
Or you approve it tonight, yeah, yeah.
Recommend it,
Okay, so right now I think that what we should do is, put out a vote to add the information technology, am I saying $64,752? Yes? An increase of $64,752 into our proposed budget. All those available to vote, aye? Aye. Anyone opposed?
I abstain, Tammy Stemple.
Okay, so we are adding that into the proposed budget. And now what do we do?
The balance will remain in the reserve then policy from that 103,000. There'll be like 38,000.
Okay.
Yes. In what reserves is it going again?
It'll be
Just-
general fund contingency.
Okay. General fund contingency.
I'm fine with
Cool.
Okay. So do we need another vote on that, or?
No.
Okay. Good to know.
Tomorrow night will be a good time to talk about parks fees and
Yes.
with the city council.
So number 7, are we working at recommending the approval, or are there lots of questions still left out there and we need to utilize April 23rd?
I know Neil Reisner said that he couldn't make this meeting, and he wanted us to continue it to April,
Okay.
but I don't know if we need to do that. I don't know if we need to do that or not.
Okay, how's everyone
Jackie.
feeling?
Personally, I'm okay with approving the budget myself. I think we've discussed it, got good explanations, at least to my satisfaction. So-
Okay. Sir?
I really like it. I'm really impressed. I was sad that you didn't spark the joy part of that, but I think too that you can get a cookie. It was all on the up. It's all on the up and up, and this is what we need to do. I'm really impressed.
Okay, moving on down the line.
I'm fine with approving.
Agreed.
Okay.
Okay, number 7 on this agenda is recommend approval of 2019-2021 budget to the City Council for public hearing and/or adoption scheduled next meeting date of April 23rd, and that would include the information technology money and the reserve funds to be left in reserve. All those in favor?
I got one quick question, one quick statement. I did not discuss anything to do with the fire department budget, and I've been told that if I participate in any part of this budget recommendation, it will be challenged as an ethics violation, and I am sick and tired of spending my time defending those ethics complaints and going down to Salem, so I am not going to vote on this recommendation.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing.
So we are voting then and to not have, to adapt it and not have a meeting in April, correct?
No, we'll meet in April.
We'll still meet in April.
If we recommend approval, we will not
Oh.
need
No.
to.
Right.
This is it.
somebody needs to be there in April from the
No,
budget
it's
committee.
June
don't they?
11th.
Oh, June 11th?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's when the
April.
council
Okay.
then, you're recommending that the approved budget go forward to the council in June for adoption.
Oh.
The April meeting is just if it was not resolved tonight, if we didn't approve it tonight.
Oh, okay, okay, it was a separate meeting, okay. I thought that's when we recommended it to the council. But since we're all here, okay.
So all of those on the budget committee, in agreement with the budget, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? I'm an aye too. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, moving to state shared revenues.
Basically, part of this, receiving of the state shared revenues is that there has to be, 2 public comment periods. So, we don't appear to have any public that are here to make a comment on the state shared revenues. So, basically, we just need to advise you as far as what the amount is, or get into the minutes. What the amount is of state shared revenues. We'll be receiving a total of $883,459 approximately for the 2019-2021 proposed or biennium, and that consists of the state revenue sharing, which is based on some liquor formula that they have, additional alcohol revenue, marijuana tax revenue, and cigarette tax revenue. All of that comes into the general fund.
Sin tax is what they call that.
We're on page 27.
27, I'm sorry. Yes, those are listed there, the sin tax is there. And then, in the road and street fund, that's where the gas taxes are received. And we're estimating that there will be a total of $1,837,123 will be received for the, from the state for gas tax. And basically, that's what we need to see, so that you're aware of what that is there, what is coming in and what it is used for. The general fund revenues can be used general fund wide. The state highway taxes are used obviously for road and street. Big contribution there. So we will also have to have a public comment period for that, and there will be resolutions passed by the city council with the adoption of the budget on that. And
When does the public comment on that take place?
June 11th, we'll
That's
have
June
a
11th
public
as
hearing.
well, okay.
Yeah.
So you don't need anything from us at this time?
No,
Okay.
no, opening it up for public comment, which,
It says on here, number 3, to recommend approval, so we do not need to do that?
yes, you do. You do, I apologize, but that is, yes, today, you do need to recommend approval of the state shared revenues.
Okay.
Yes.
Do we need somebody to move towards that, or I just ask for it?
I'd make a motion to recommend the approval of the state shared revenues to city council for public hearing and adoption.
I'll second it.
All those in agreement?
Aye.
All those opposed? Good to know, that one passed too.
Okay. You
Now we're
need
gonna move to the
You
other.
need to adjourn us and then reconvene us as the Urban Renewal Budget Committee.
Oh.
I'd make a motion for adjourn.
Good.
I've done this before.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Your second.
Oh, second.
Okay, we have a what did you do?
I adjourn.
Yeah, we have that, and we are going to now go to the Gladstone Urban Renewal Budget Committee meeting.
Vote on adjournment.
We have to get a vote on the adjournment.
Would we like to all adjourn?
Yeah.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Moving forward. The, public comment, so we're calling to order the meeting, and is there any public comment? Do you have any cards? Thank you. And let's discuss the proposed 2019-2021 urban renewal budget.
Okay, so I will try to read fast. This is just one page. It's my pleasure to present to you the 2019-21 proposed biennial budget for the Gladstone Urban Renewal Agency. The purpose of GURA is to administer the statutory tax increment revenues for funding the goals and objectives of the Gladstone Urban Renewal District Plan through designated projects within the district. In June of 2018, GURA authorized indebtedness for capital projects for the district and approved the 23rd Amendment updating the project descriptions pursuant to Resolution Number UR65. These authorizations allowed the city to fund construction for a new city hall and police station. The city has since entered into 2 agreements to finance the design and construction of the new facilities. The total project cost is $12.8 million and required a combination of funds to realize completions. Financing was issued by the Gladstone Urban Renewal Agency for $3.8 million and the City of Gladstone with a full faith and credit note for $3 million as authorized by Resolutions Number UR66 and Number 1137. There is an agreement between GURA and the City for transfer of funds for the City's debt services. The remainder of the total cost of the project is available in GURA cash funds and is fully capable of funding the projects and expenses. Civic spaces are an extension of the community, and when cities and neighborhoods have thriving civic spaces, residents have a strong sense of community. Gladstone deserves these highly anticipated and voter-approved public amenities that will trigger thoughtful redevelopment on Portland Avenue. We look forward to their completion in the next biennium.
Okay, so to take you through the budget quickly, as you can see on page 2, it gives you a little bit of information about the Urban Renewal District itself, the limitations on urban renewal, and then going on the next page, number 3, goes into the Gladstone maximum indebtedness, and this is basically how urban renewal districts are calculated. We had after the 23 amendments that have been done to this agency, we had a maximum indebtedness authorized at $23,589,427 over a period of time through basically I was able to calculate this as of January 31st, 2019, and we had spent $7,939,348 and have an indebtedness remaining of $15,650,79. So obviously there's enough money to complete our construction. That's as far as the indebtedness amount. Once that $23,589,427 is reached, the urban renewal district is a dead closure. It will, any debt will be paid off and then it will expire unless another amendment is made. The majority of the revenue comes from the cash carry forward from previous years. Requirements have been separated in items required by the URA, materials and services, debt service, and then there's also some auditing costs that go against this. The transfers to the general fund are based, as we said, on the full faith and credit note repayment. You will see that once the transfer goes out of the $12,766,000 over to the Civic Buildings Capital Fund, we are anticipating that by the end of the biennium, there will still be about $2,282,000 left in the urban renewal district. So that we have the ability to utilize that for fund projects that come in under the limitations there. The debt service is in the next section there. Just give you some information on $3.8 million that we borrowed, and shows you what the actual repayment will be and how much. By the way, we received a 1.99% interest on this note, no, 2.99, I apologize. And then on the Gladstone full faith and credit, it was 3%, so good interest rate on both of those borrowings.
Can we do that?
Lend me some
Sure. Mortgage and loan
yes,
here?
it really went very smoothly. There's the GIS, the latest map on it, and then our 23rd Amendment back there, which basically just clarifies the projects themselves that we were spending this money on. With that, is there any questions on the urban renewal budget?
Where do funds come from that flow into this?
It comes from when the district is declared and the boundaries are set. current property values are frozen, and all of the agencies participate up to that frozen level, and then any increase in the value of the property over and above that frozen level funds the urban renewal.
So there is a steady stream, hopefully, of it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's running just under $1 million a year.
Okay. So we have that to play with.
Well, actually, it's
In the
paying
park?
debt service.
Well, paying for the
Yes.
debt service,
Yes.
but once
But
all
you're-
that's done.
Well, once it's done,
Yeah.
once the debt service is paid out, the urban renewal district will.
We'll see soon,
Yes.
It has to be used within that district.
Oh, got it.
Not anywhere else.
Yes.
Okay.
And can't be used for everything.
No.
And the county increases.
Which is
like up 1.5% a year.
But once it does, once it does expire that way, then those funds come back to the district also too. We will see an increase
Right.
in the revenue, in the general fund revenues that come in.
It's a double-edged sword.
But on a very positive note, our interest rates that we got are a direct result as to the job that you people do, so thank you.
Oh, yeah.
And we're paying them off in 8 years
Yeah.
instead of a traditional 20-year bond or 8
That's
years.
awesome.
Yeah.
Saves so much money.
Good deal. Okay, would someone like to recommend the approval?
I'm sorry. I would recommend the approval of the 2019-2021 budget to Urban Renewal Agency for public hearing and adoption. Is that what you asked for?
Yes.
I would love to sit
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Good to know. Well, moving forward, do we have a bagpipe? Okay.
We're just getting started, no.
It goes
We need a
on and
motion to
on.
adjourn.
Yes, that's what we need.
All right, well, let's make a motion to adjourn.
I will
There has been a motion to adjourn the public hearing on the Urban Renewal Budget Committee. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? And that passes as well.
Wow.
And I believe that we are done for the evening with the City of Gladstone Budget Committee meeting.
Thank you very much.